This is an excerpt from Chapter 7 of 14 Stones. That night, when she was finally alone in her chambers of the house of the Sventine, Valda found herself wrapped in different memories. Not of Tavin Ardenas, but he had woken them up in her that last evening when they talked. Those first days at the Viduras, the lonely chill of that time seemed to reach out of the past now and twist around Valda's heart and mind. She'd been a fragile soul, tightly coiled on herself. She still remembered the fear that had kept her from reaching out to anyone, even her roommate, to try to be friends, in case she found that her deepest fears were right. She didn't really belong in this overwhelming place with all these clever people, all these strange faces and voices. She'd had dreams even then. She'd let herself dream about Sostavi from the first time she realized she wanted to go to the Viduras. At her first classes, the teacher's words all seemed to blur together. Kunindergo's stern look made her want to hide in a corner. She knew she'd never see Sostavi. She could never keep up with this work. As Valda remembered it now, her chambers seemed to fall away, and all the things that defined her rank, as if those things had been the dream, and only the memory was real. She was the lonely girl in the red Mosavine's robes again, with no one to talk to, no one to trust. One morning in the Viduras' dining hall, more than a week into Rudua, the first month of the school's year, the teachers enforced a strict code of behavior at meals, so there was no rowdiness, but murmurs of talk and occasional short bursts of laughter filled the room. Outside, it was a chilly gray autumn day. Inside, the hearth warmed the bare stone floor and whitewashed walls, and there were smells of porridge and toast. Breakfast tended to be the Viduras' best meal, free from overboiled vegetables and tough, questionable meat. Valda sat alone in a table in one corner of the room with her back to one of the tall windows. Most of the other round tables had students clustered around them, first years through third years, but already people seemed to know to leave Valda alone. No one asked to sit with her, but no one bothered her either. She propped her book in front of her, determined to understand the old Nemoran teacher's last lecture on declensions. It was hard to get absorbed, because she felt as if people were looking at her, their stares like pinpricks on her skin. She told herself nobody cared what she did. She told herself she was glad. She was staring at the chart of noun endings, trying to see the difference between accusative and ablative case when someone said, "Good morning." Valda almost dropped the book. She recognized the boy standing in front of her, of course. Everyone seemed to know him already. He was a tall, plain-looking farmer's boy from a little village no one had ever heard of. He wouldn't have stood out, except he was brave enough to ask Kunindergo questions, and he made friends so easily that Valda hadn't thought he could be a first year too. And, she noticed now, he had the most striking blue eyes she had ever seen. "Good morning." Her voice felt rusty, as if she hadn't used it in too long. "Is it all right if I sit with you?" Why did he want to? Valda gulped. "Yes," she said, and then wished she hadn't. How was she going to talk to him? He set his bowl of porridge and mug of tea down and sat across from her. "I'm Rebus," he said. "I know who you are." The words came out before she thought. Valda felt the blush surge into her face. She could have told him her name or said, "Nice to meet you." He laughed. There was no ridicule in it, only friendliness. "Then we're even," he said. "I know who you are, too. Valdana, right?" Why would he have noticed her? Valda had no idea, but for the first time since she'd gotten to the Viduras, she found herself smiling. "That's right." A log shifted on the hearth in Valda's chambers, landing with a crunch on the stone and sending up a burst of sparks. The sound and light pulled her back to Sostavi and the house of the Sventine. Ribe. It hadn't been hard to talk to him after all, not even a little. He'd told her about Lida village and his family and the farm where he'd grown up, and he admitted his homesickness so candidly that she'd felt safe telling him how huge and scary the Viduras felt to her. They'd talked about old Nemoran declensions and the Kunin's lecture the day before on the Book of Kanavi, and he'd gotten her laughing about the unguessable stew they'd been served for dinner last night. She'd forgotten how good it felt to laugh. And he'd said, with a smile Valda would still know anywhere, that the Viduras was a strange place sure enough, but they'd figure it out. They'd get through this together. Looking back, Valda knew that as impressive as the Dovne Kanavnis was, it wasn't Rebus's real gift. He made people feel safe. You knew you could lean on his kindness. And now Valda was here, and Tavin Ardenas was gone. And Rebus was hundreds of miles away in that little mountain village, and she hadn't been in touch with him in 15 years. Tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, she, the Tavo Balsa, would have to stand in front of the Dagira and do the tasks demanded of her, alone. Ribe, goddess, hear me. I miss you.